Hey everybody, welcome back. I got a treat for you. We're gonna do a one-on-one interview. We don't do those all the time. This one's with an expert. You've got a lot to learn about how you keep marketing your book. Here's a great show for you. Without any further delay, let me introduce this week's guest. I'm pleased to interview one of our BizBook Pub Hub partners. Our hub partners are experts who support entrepreneurs along their author journey. Today's guest is a seasoned voiceover coach, audiobook narrator, and technologist dedicated to helping authors bring their books to life in audio format. With nearly 50 years of experience in broadcasting, voice work, and on-camera acting, he understands the nuances of performance, production, and the power of storytelling through sound. As the creator of Narrate Your Own Book, he specializes in teaching others how to narrate their own audiobooks with confidence and professionalism. His comprehensive program goes beyond basic recording techniques, offering training in performance, technical skills, and industry standards, ensuring authors produce high-quality audiobooks they can be proud of. Through his award-winning VO Heroes training program, he has coached thousands of students, guiding through the art, science, and business of audiobook narration. His mission is to equip authors with the skills and tools they need to transform their written words into engaging audio experiences that meet professional standards on platforms like Audible's ACX. Please join me in welcoming David H. Lawrence XVII. David, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Man, I built you up there because I love what you're doing. I
Thank you.
really do.
Thank
And
you.
I love it because it gives power back to the authors. And I have, kind of felt my way through recording one audiobook as a sort of bonus content, but I knew the quality was not good enough for ACX.
Mhm.
But I tried my darndest, and that was many, many years ago. And I
Yeah.
thought, well, I have a podcast. I could do this. And it turns out to be a bit more than that. So how did you come, like, how does authors even become like part of your world? Sounds like you come from the world of acting and theater, voiceover. How does that then become working with authors?
Yeah. My core audience, the core target for the clients that I serve are actors and voice talent that work in the same space I do: television, film, commercials, etc. And they want to add audiobooks to their offerings. And I've been doing it for a little over, how long has ACX been around? Since 2011. So a little over 13 years for that. And every so often, and we've had thousands of students. Our students are responsible for over 8,000 books that are currently on sale on audible.com. And every so often, an author would sneak into my class and reveal themselves at some point when I would be talking about some sort of performance language that actors get and that voice talent have heard before. Author would say, so I gotta let you know I'm an author, not an actor. And I'm like, too late, you're now an actor. So um, because that kept happening, and because they were having a great time doing it, I thought, okay, so I've got this, body of work that trains professional actors and voice talent to do this for authors. Why don't I take that and just adjust it a little bit, add some things that authors need, like how to do cover art and how to work with bringing your project over from Kindle and setting up your account, and leave out the stuff that I teach actors and voice talent on how to serve a rights holder, since they are the rights holder, and create a new offering specifically for authors who want to narrate the titles that they've written. And so that's how Narrate Your Own Book was born.
I also love the name of the program is one of those like self-explanatory names. They always say either be clear or clever.
Yeah,
If you can be both, great. If you can only be one, be clear.
yeah.
Yeah. So, narrate your own book. It sounds like you were listening to the market. People kept trying to get the information you had for these voiceover actors because they wanted to narrate their own book.
Yeah.
And it's also something I feel like has become more popular over time, that people are feeling like this, especially in nonfiction books. Not, that's the world that I'm operating in. Is these nonfiction books? They're the experts, and there are probably reasons that you wouldn't want to be the author, but there's also a lot of reasons why you might want to do this if you have the right supports and systems and technology in place, because it's your words and you care about this more than anybody. You know this more than anybody. You know the inflection. I mean, even though it's not a fiction book with character voices, they're still bringing the whole paper text to life. And I could see how with the just abundance of audiobooks now out there, that that's a feature, not just like an add-on, like afterthought. That's like you write the book thinking one day I'm going to read this book and it'll be my voice that's on that audio. But like it becomes a goal. Have you seen that? I mean, this is like 12 plus years, 13 years. Have you seen a shift in there being a bigger demand for authors asking for this from the get-go?
So narrating your own title has often been the domain of memoir writers, of subject matter experts, of celebrities, of people who, even if they are writing, fiction that is a wee bit out there, there are plenty of authors that read their own work, people like Will Wheaton and others. One of them I don't want to mention because he's currently being canceled, but some authors have read their own books and they've thought to themselves, I did okay, but I want somebody who can bring some characters to life. And I think that sometimes sells you and yourself short. You've been living with this story as you've been writing it for sometimes decades, certainly months and years, right? And you have an idea of what these characters sound like in your head. This is for authors who are like, I'm writing fiction. I don't even know how to pronounce some of the words that I'm putting in the manuscript. But you really do. You're hearing it in your head as you're writing it. And if you're doing the modern thing as you're writing, as you write content, you're also saying it out loud just so that you can hear how it lands on the ear. Because the easiest stuff to read is stuff that's not really written for the eye alone, but for the ear as well. That's why listening to an audiobook narration of, Victorian literature is a little hard and a little dense to get through to modern ears. But if you're writing stuff now, saying it out loud, even if you're not going to narrate it as an audiobook, really helps in the editing process because it makes things land better. It really does. And so I think you could fall prey to assuming that unless I'm writing a nonfiction book, unless I'm a subject matter expert or it's my memoir, I'm not the person that should be narrating it. And when you look at the New York Times bestseller list for audiobooks, certainly for nonfiction, I think last month I checked, it was like 18 of the 20 top selling books were narrated by the author. But if you go over to the fiction side, you're seeing more and more authors training to do this, not just doing it with, whatever they've got, but actually taking some acting lessons or taking some narration lessons from somebody like me. That's what we do. We don't just show you how to narrate the book, but we also give you coaching on performance so that we can help you meet your audience just the way you meet your audience with your writing. We help you meet your audience with your performance. Yeah.
You mentioned earlier this idea of reading the book as you write, and this is something that I think changed my writing early on. My first book I wrote in 2017, but I first started trying to write it in 2015. But I, prior to that, only had academic writing as an experience. And I never liked academic writing. And I found it really hard to do academic papers. And so now I was trying to get into this rhythm of writing, which was not my natural medium of communication. And it felt really kind of stilted. I read that book 3 times when it was written. By the third time that I read it straight through out loud, I decided I was, it was good enough. Like I was sort of sick of hearing it. But I also, so many little edits came. And it also made me realize that the way I spoke was the way I needed to write. Like somewhere in that translation of trying to do that, I started getting more comfortable with the writing. And then for my second book, I discovered Speechify. And I haven't actually talked about this on the podcast, but Speechify app, small fee for the year, but I get to choose what voices I want, and it narrates what I'm writing as I'm writing it. So I'll I won't wait to the end to do the whole book anymore. I'll write a section and then I'll listen to it, and then I'll kind of listen to how it feels. And now on top of that, I'm using Grammarly to take out the extra words because
Okay.
I also write sometimes with too many like lead-ins. The again way we speak is sometimes a little bit too much, but I think using these tools can get it crisp and a little bit better. But even if you're not planning initially to do an audiobook, it does feel like using audio tools or reading it out loud yourself is part of the writing process now. But then I think that would also make an author more comfortable with the idea of pursuing an audiobook. So, what are your thoughts about how authors are starting to adapt some of those tools to, get their writing done at a little more different pace than maybe if they were just sitting there looking at a blank page?
Sure. Well, it depends on the tone that you're writing the book in. If you're writing for an academic audience, obviously, you have to write in a particular way with particular requirements. If you're Some people have this notion that the only way a book is going to appear professional or sell well is if they become something better than they actually are, that they become Robbie, not Robbie, And so they'll suit up with their armor and they'll start using words that they would never use, explaining the concept in everyday language to people. And they don't have the faith that they, as a human being, they, as a spirit, are enough. And I want to tell you, if you're watching this, listen to what Robbie's saying. You are enough. Your voice is going to come through your writing, and it doesn't require you to be something that you're not. In fact, the authenticity that you achieve when you write somewhat the way you speak, without the vocalization bridges, the and the likes and so's and things like that, you're going to become that much more valuable to your audience because they'll trust you. They'll feel that authenticity. And there's kind of a second layer to this when it comes to audiobooks that we teach in the course, and that is taking your finished manuscript that you've published in whatever print versions you're going to publish in, and running it through a process that I call audiobookifying it. And it basically runs the gamut from taking sentences that say, as an example, as you read this book, you'll find that, and changing that to, as you listen to this audiobook, you'll find that, not referring to page numbers or images or maps or any sort of graphics, or you'll find that above or below, right? We have a whole checklist of things that you go through and you look at just to make the experience for the audiobook listener a little bit more easy, and you don't take them out of the story when they hear you say, on the next page, you'll find, So, I think that the work of audio to a writer is beyond the notion of just creating an audiobook version of your work. And it can be used in a lot of different ways. And it's certainly not something that those Victorian writers could do. There was no audience. There's no audio to be recorded. But did that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. And
Okay, cool.
I really appreciate you that piece you just said about audiobookifying it, I think is your phrase.
Good job.
Yeah, because I know that what happened was I wrote Croissants versus Bagels, Strategic, Effective, and Inclusive Networking at Conferences back in 2017. And I decided to record an audio version as the bonus content for people who got the paperback. So my intention was never to put it on ACX, but I looked up all the ACX requirements, and I had a podcast editor who could like smooth out the final file. And I even had someone listen to the whole thing and find all the places that I goofed, but I never went back and fixed those goofs because, again, it wasn't for ACX. But that's what made me realize, like even my attempt to do this as good as I could I have a great mic where I had a good setup, drank a lot of water, paced myself. I didn't have a producer. I didn't have someone kind of listening as I was going. And I have been like witness to, but not in the room with, friends who've gone through doing this in studios in various places. They'll travel like to New York City or something, and they'll take photos and videos themselves in the booth. And it's a whole setup. It's a whole thing. And I think that, I had no budget back then for any of this, but it gave me a real appreciation for it. And I didn't do it for my next 2 books because they were much more a manual and next steps. But this next book, I'm going to have a conversation with you about it, because I think writing a book, the next one that's about to come out, is don't just hit publish, launch your book, An Entrepreneur's Guide to Reviews and Revenue. And while this one does have some step-by-step in it, it feels like a lot of that will be in the bonus content anyway. And so I might as well get the rest of it out on the audiobook. And I say this now as a person who I listen to 160 audiobooks a year the last few years, and my wife listens to close to 300, and I'm reading as many as I am because she gives me a bunch of books to listen to. And my number of nonfiction books have gone up because I'm just listening all the time. Like, it's just in the habit. So now the idea of not having this book as an audiobook, I'm, as an audience, like, I'm now like, what? Like, how could there be a book out there that I want to read? It's not an audio. And I might occasionally use Speechify to like listen to a friend's Kindle book or something. But I think the demand has definitely increased. And authors who skip working professionals will probably say things like, in my book on this page, as you'll see below. And just like a moment ago, you said those of you watching, and most people are going to be listening, it takes you out of the story, right? Like, this is the kind of stuff that we have to pay attention to. But I have a very specific question about your services, because it could really range. Like, I feels like the service you provide falls under a large umbrella of people doing audiobooks. So at what point does an author come to you, and what do they mostly think they're coming to you for? And what do they end up hiring you for? Because is there a difference between what they think they need and the service they end up working with you on? Because there's like a learning curve for them about that. I feel like as service providers, that's often the case, but maybe in your case, it's like more of a match.
So there's a lot to unpack in what you just said and what you just asked. So first of all, no two authors are alike. And this is something that I have learned. Narrate Your Own Book is like maybe a year old. That's when I decided to actually pull the trigger on this. I've been thinking about it for about 6 years, but one of the biggest lessons I've learned is that there's a big difference between my actor and voiceover clients in VO Heroes and the ACX Masterclass and the authors that I'm training in Narrate Your Own Book. Number one, actors and voice talent, they can't wait to get started. They want to build a business to do this for authors, right? That's what their job is. That's what ACX was created for. So their timeline is like days, weeks, maybe. They want to get going now. Authors, on the other hand, again, back to that whole, like, how long has it taken you to birth this book? They'll get to it when they get to it. It could be, I have to wait until my book is published. I have to wait until my manuscript is locked. I have to wait until next year. I don't know. It does, and our approach is not, we don't do it for you. We don't show you how to go find a narrator or go to a studio somewhere and pay somebody a lot of money. We teach you how to fish. We even give you the fishing rod and reel and hooks and everything. I use this microphone when I'm doing my narration, and this gets sent to all of my students that they can keep and use
for what kind of microphone is it?
It's the Audio-Technica AT2040. Mm-hmm. And the 2020 was what our go-to mic was, and they stopped making it. And I'm like, what's wrong with you? The microphones don't get stopped being made. That ice cream cone microphone that you see singers use on stage, the Shure SM58, that's been made since the late 1600s. They've never taken that out of the lineup, right? But the people that bought Audio-Technica, they're like, we're freshening our line. And I'm like, wait a minute. My whole course is based on the 2020. I have to change all those lessons now. Anyway, we provide the gear. We show you how to do this job, and we give you the skills that if you've got more than one title, you can use it for all of it. And it doesn't cost you any more money to do that. So when you think about the assumptions that authors make about the world of audiobooks, sometimes it's like an moment when they realize, wait a minute, I can simultaneously publish my print versions and my audiobook versions, just like the big publishers do, if I just take a moment and learn a little bit about how to plan that out. ACX will help you do day and date simultaneous publishing if you know how to do it, So I think that the approach to this for us is to give somebody a set of skills, give an author a set of skills, and to solve the math problem of things like meeting their technical requirements. So as an example, I created a piece of software called Audio Cupcake. And you take your finished, for each chapter, you'll have a finished edited audio file. You just drag that onto Audio Cupcake, and it spits out the compliant MP3 file that you can upload to ACX and know that it will meet their requirements. So what we try to do is remove every obstacle that you have technically, performance-wise, process-wise. How am I going to, market this once I get it done? We show you how to create trailers for your audiobook on Headliner. I'm sure you're familiar with Headliner. We want to make sure that you get all of the tools that independent authors who already know how to do this stuff use, and that the big boys use. How does Penguin Random House do their work, right? Even to the point of my secret sauce, which is the recording and editing process that I created with Audacity, that makes it next to impossible for you to make an error in editing. So I don't know how many books you've listened to where you've heard the narrator at one point go, let me take that one more time. And you're like, wait a minute, did they miss an edit? Did they miss oh my God, they missed an edit. And this happens with big books. This happens with small books, big books. It happens, right? And I wanted to make sure that none of my clients, nor I, and I've done a little over 300 books now, spend any more time doing the actual work than I need to, and yet still have a stellar product in the end. So I created this very streamlined process that really gets you in and out of the recording and editing process quickly onto the mastering process, and then to having the book on sale on Audible. And we try to do it as inexpensively as possible. I know there are an awful lot of authors that are sitting in their artist garret eating their gruel, as I did when I was first starting, trying to maintain this journey of being an artist and being alive. And so I don't want anybody to spend any more time or money than they need to spend. So we make it as simple as possible. And part of that is fitting into the workflow of the audiobook industry as it stands today. I do hope I answered your question.
Yeah, you did. And you gave me a lot of ideas. I feel like anyone who's listening who was thinking like, maybe it's like, well, there's really no more excuses. I mean, David has just laid out for you the technical pieces, the flow, the system, the audio cupcake. I mean, like, there's a lot there to make this all better. And one of the things I've realized being an author, and I'm an independent author, and I also project manage my own publication and launches. So I hire people, but I don't hire like one company. I'm not a person who goes and like works with a hybrid company. Probably because the first time I couldn't afford it. Maybe if I could have afforded it the first time, I'd have done that. Yep. But what it means is I had a graphic designer for my first cover who was a wonderful guy. I love him to death. He's an amazing graphic designer for major companies, but he wasn't someone who had a lot of experience designing book covers. And after the fact, I kind of realized the difference. And similarly, I had my wonderful podcast editor I've been working with for 10 years now. He did sort of the edits at the end to clean up my audio file to make sure I had the bonus content. But it was not, as I noticed when I re-listened to it, kind of the standard of the ACX. It was close. It was good. It was good enough to listen to if you're getting it for free as a bonus. But this is where it's important to work with not just someone who's good at graphic design and good at audio engineering, but understands the purpose of you using that tool. Like, what's the outcome you're trying to get to? And I think that's where working with someone like you matters, because it's not just about the audio, it's about the end result of an audio book. And so I caught that from what you were saying. The other thing that you mentioned, and I have sort of a counterpoint, I think. So the audiobook, I tell my clients, publishing it later, like I tell them generally the best practice I would say for my book launch strategy is the Kindle book comes out right away. The ebook and the paperback should be formatted at the same time. Usually the paperback would be formatted first because it's more complicated. But while you're looking at the proof from Amazon and you're double checking all that, you upload your Kindle book and you publish, and you spend a couple of weeks getting reviews from your launch team actually on Amazon. And then there's a launch day, and the launch day is when we're going to make announcement to the whole world. And so your launch day is when you really want to make sure your paperback's up. So, maybe a week before or 2 days before you hit publish. So in that time frame, you've already gotten the proof copy, you're happy with it, it looks good, it feels good, all that. Because I've definitely seen authors who didn't do the proof copy, and then things happen. So you want to do that. And then a month later, 2 months later, a year later, whenever you get to it, don't put it off forever. The audiobook, because often it's too many things to happen all at once, because they go from writing to editing to launching, which most people forget this step actually, which is why I'm here. And then they go to marketing and they kind of miss that. So I really think if you build in that you're going to do the audiobook, you'll have all this lined up ahead of time. And maybe you can have it come out 30 days later. The benefit of it coming out kind of close is that there are people who are going to be a little resistant to buying maybe the paperback version. They'll buy the Kindle for 99 cents to help you out, but for them to actually read the full book, they really want the audio version. You could promise them that it's coming and then have another little boost in promotional effort and sales around your book 30 days after it came out, or after the launch day.
So and you just illustrated that exactly, that it's all different. And having a separate event, you're absolutely right, can help increase and maintain whatever momentum you had from the actual print launch. So it's great.
Yeah. So no stress if you're feeling like, oh, I can't do this all at once. And that's honestly working with a traditional publisher. I've had friends who have had the golden ticket to do that. But then they tell you, oh my gosh, it's so much. Like, everything's about the release day. And there's a lot of pressure to get it done and get it done by this one moment. And I want to give people permission to have a plan for getting it done in a timely amount of time, but like pacing it out could give you some added benefits, like having the audiobook version. But I do think for most books, particularly books written by entrepreneurs to help them grow their business, they shouldn't dismiss the idea of an audiobook. They should give some real consideration to it and figure out how to fit it in.
Sure. I mean, it kind of, I see what's developing, especially for subject matter experts. I see a framework developing of, print book, ebook, audiobook, speech, course. Like you're giving people, you're meeting your customers, you're meeting your clients, your target audience where they are. What are they most comfortable consuming? Some people want to sit and read a book on the beach, who knows? Other people want to attend a live event where you're telling them all about your subject and how to make your life better based on what they know. So however you decide the framework works best for you, then follow that muse, and that's one of the joys of Narrate Your Own Book, is it'll work no matter when you're doing it. So if you've got titles that you published 10 years ago that are still relevant, and maybe you want to renew the attention on those titles on your back catalog, you can think about doing an audiobook version of it and redoing it all over again. Maybe you update it with a second edition and you do an audiobook of that.
You're giving me ideas here. I feel like I'm selling myself into your services on this call, which is how everyone else should be doing it too. So my first book is about networking at conferences, and there was a moment where no one needed to know that. Let's be real. It kind of got hidden in the list for a little while, and there was a lot of renewed interest in around 2023, 2024 because people, if they had trouble networking before the pandemic, and they did, a lot of people did, which is why I wrote the book. It was a skill we had all kind of lost and needed to get back to. And so, here's an example of, I don't need a new edition. It's fine. I could create an audiobook. Now, I also am realizing as I say this, if I do this, I'd probably be rereading it and wanting to make edits
Yeah,
because my
that happens
writing has
all the
gotten
time.
better.
That happens all the time. I have authors who are like, okay, wait a minute. So I'm listening to this and I'm like, I screwed up this one part. Do you mind if, like, and as the author, you can do that if that's what you want to do. Just know that it would be a good idea for you to publish a second edition or do some sort of an update. And I imagine I have a friend who's an actor who has a course on auditioning. And when he first created the course, it was in the early 2000s. There were no self-tapes. And now 99% of the auditions that I do for television and film, I'm filming in this studio as an audition and sending the MP4 file to the casting director. That's just the way it's been since the pandemic. And a little bit before that as well, there was just a higher level of the number of actors that they were seeing because people could do this self-tape thing. And so he's taking his course and updating it to include not just what happens in a live audition space with right in front of the casting director, but what happens either live online or when you're recording something. So he's creating a new version of it. He has a book that goes with it, and he did the audiobook for that book. He's doing the new edition of the book and a new edition of the audiobook. So you might consider, that people are still doing online summits. They're still doing, online events in general. And that if you didn't, refer to that process or that option that event holders have in your original book, maybe there's a bonus chapter in you that can talk about online, how to show up online and how to make sure that you look good and how to make sure that your log line is correct and that you don't do stupid things in Zoom sessions. And I don't know.
Well, my whole third book is about that.
Oh,
So,
okay. Well, then there you go.
but I could
Yeah. Okay.
easily
So hold on.
reference
So
from one book to the other.
exactly. You do a
Yeah.
bonus thing that promotes the new book. And
Yeah.
by the way, if you want to know more, I've got this new book. So yeah.
It's very interesting that so many of us are sitting already on a gold mine of content that we are always told repurpose, repurpose, repurpose. I mean, there's sort of a clear message about that. But here's an example that, me looking through that, if I can change the goal, I think the rule around this for Amazon is if you change 10% of the original book, then it could qualify, I believe, as the second edition. And I'm sure I could do that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I want to. I'm not declaring that I'm going to. I have a different book right now that I'm
Yeah.
working on, but it's an interesting idea that I don't have to start from scratch. That content is still really relevant, and maybe on the 10-year anniversary, I should have that out because I came out in 2017. I don't want the book to look dated, even though the content's really relevant for today. So if I were to refresh it for 10 years in, then yes, I would probably be talking about how to use Zoom calls in between annual meetings as a way to stay connected. I mean, that's something that I teach, but it wasn't something we regularly did back then. So,
And you are really good at administering and attending Zoom sessions. Like, all the newest features of Zoom and StreamYard and all the things that you use for tools for that. I just enjoy watching you execute meetings. Like, even when you end meetings, you say stuff like, okay, if you want to help me stack the chairs, the yellow one goes on the left, green ones go on the right, blue ones don't belong here, take them home with you. Like, that's just great stuff. It's just great stuff. And I consider myself to be pretty expert at doing audio online work. All of our coaching sessions, when we're doing performance coaching with our narrators, is all done with no video whatsoever, because I want to save the bandwidth for the quality of the audio. And I also don't want to be distracted, or my clients distracted, by how something looks. I want them to concentrate on the manuscript. I want them to concentrate on listening to how they sound in their ears. And you have that skill that is so infectious and so lovely to watch being executed, like the timers and the music. And so go for it, Robbie.
I appreciate it. So my third book that I referenced a moment ago is Break Out of Boredom, Low-Tech Solutions for Highly Engaging Zoom Events. If you go to robbiesamrey.com and you scroll down the homepage, folks, you'll see all the books that I've written. This is, I love where this conversation has gone, and I appreciate your compliments. I'm curious if you had a client, maybe one who was a little reluctant at first, and then they went and did the audiobook, who then got success, like the book took off, the audiobook mattered. Can you give me an example of that?
So, what I can say is that in the initial cohort of audiobook narrators, 86% of them uh, got their book recorded, edited, mastered, and on sale within 6 months. And I thought that was pretty quick because it wasn't just doing the book, it was learning how to do the book. So it was the proverbial building the plane as you were flying it. And so I think that's a big, huge win. And I haven't gotten to the point yet where I'm following up with my clients and saying, so how are the sales going? I don't have much control over the quality of how the narration goes or how the book is produced. There's no guarantees that it's going to resonate with an audience. And I admire the fact that you have a whole again, a whole workflow built around getting reviews and using those reviews to help sell. I haven't gotten to that point yet with my clients. I'm like, this is like almost 40-hour course, and I want to make sure that they can reuse this skill for the next book and the next book after that, so that it starts to amortize their cost on doing the course. And so I haven't gotten to that point yet, but I can tell you that just anecdotally, I had lunch with one of the local students that are here in LA, and she was embarrassingly effusive. I was like looking around going, I hope nobody's listening. This is embarrassing, because she was just so happy about a number of weird different things about it. Like, I didn't know I should look at high contrast for my book cover. When she first put her book cover up, it was dark with slightly lighter script writing on it because she'd written a book that was kind of gothic, right? And I'm like, nobody's going to be able to see that at thumbnail size. And she's like, oh. And it just like was one of those light bulbs. She's also really happy about the editing process. She goes, I just use my fingers and that's it. Like little things hit with people in a way that is sometimes surprising to me. But she basically was like just really happy about the way things turned out because she was so scared when she first started. She was scared that her voice wasn't good enough. I mean, typical imposter syndrome stuff. She was too old. She didn't understand the technical side of things, and computers confused her. And so as each one of these things was knocked down, it was less of an obstacle for her to look toward the actual goal, which was to be on sale on Audible and start to get good reviews. We show people how to use promo codes. We show people how to use bounty codes. We show people how to do the things that will get you or start to get you great reviews. And, I'm going to sit at the foot of the master at some point and figure out how to inculcate that. Maybe have you come talk to our group about how to do that. I'm sure there's like, I have to be careful not to try to make this tool like one of those 19-in-1 wrenches that have a screwdriver at one end and a crescent wrench at the other end, and you can use it as a hammer. I want to try to be as effective as I can be without trying to be everything to everyone. So I can only say that nobody's complained. I mean, that's a
You're
win
great.
for me. So
I love the story you just shared with a person who was nervous and had all these, notions in her head about why it wasn't right for her. And as you said, as those got knocked down, she got to finally focus on the actual goal, which was getting the book available on sale as an audiobook.
yeah,
And I imagine that's a journey that a lot of authors go on. And also this piece you just mentioned about having some boundaries, excuse me, having some boundaries about what your business does and does not do, even though authors need more before, during, and after working with you. And
right.
that's actually like one of the main drivers for why I built the BizBook Pub Hub, of which you're one of our premier hub partners. In fact, you were the first to sign up when I set up the new program as the premier hub partner. So thank you for your vote of confidence.
You're welcome.
We had many wonderful people following your tracks, but I really loved when I saw that come in the inbox. I was like, yay. And the goal is that each of us have a specialization. Excuse me. Each person who's one of our hub partners has an expertise in some aspect of writing, editing, publishing, or marketing a book, specifically working with entrepreneurs who are writing books to help them grow their business. Some of you also have access to information about how to do that for fiction or memoirs, etc. But like, you have some experience doing this with the entrepreneurs, and we need some help. The entrepreneurs need help because we have specific goals for why this book is being written, and we need service providers to get that and to guide us in the direction of constantly saying, how is this being used for your business? Let's make sure this fits with the business strategy. Let's talk about the order of operations. Let's make sure it's high quality, and all the different pieces, no matter where you are in that journey, writing, editing, publishing, or marketing.
Yeah.
And so, your skills are welcomed, but you don't have to also be in charge of X, Y, and Z, right? You get to point them to other people in the hub who might, be able to provide a service before, during, and after they work with you, and vice versa. Other people in the hub who don't specialize in audiobooks don't need to start figuring how to do that. They can just be like, oh, I have authors who want to do that. Let me introduce them to you. So I'm curious what your experience has been. Do you have any highlights of the events we've been hosting? The fact that we have this wonderful community of about 24 hub partners, the podcast. I mean, like, there's a whole ecosystem now that sort of evolved over the last year.
Yeah. So a couple things. There are other members of the hub that deal with audiobooks. They're, as far as I know, they are, we'll do it for you. We'll help your author clients find a studio near them, and we'll arrange for an engineer, and we'll do the post-production. I'm more of a, do-it-yourselfer kind of guy, and I love bringing people to that point, but there are other options as well. I joined the hub after I did my initial soft launch of Narrate Your Own Book, and I did so because I thought I'd be able to meet people who are helping authors get their jobs done and would be great affiliates for future launches of Narrate Your Own Book. And so far, I've met a dozen people who will be affiliates coming up, and I'm looking forward to that. And that's been the big thing. And also conversations like this, like, authors, if they're concentrating and focusing on their work, they got their blinders on, and it's about writing and publishing, right? It's not about this audiobook thing off to the side that's, yammering in my ear, and yeah, I know it's there, but it's not what I'm doing right now. I'm actually writing a book, and then I'm going to publish and promote that book and market that book and gather, like, all the things that go along with that thing. Yeah, I know, audiobook, right, whatever. So I get that a lot, and I understand that. And so I'm having conversations with other people in the hub who are like, oh, yeah. I've got, like, the lady who's the lawyer in the hub. Yeah, I mean, she, I'm sure she has people who might need these services, but it's not like they come to her and they go, do you know anybody who knows anything about audiobooks? They come to her when they have contract questions. And so just making relationships with those people in a way that I can say to them, listen, if you want to be involved in a launch as an affiliate, as a paid affiliate, I'd love to have you. If there's anything I can answer for you question-wise in terms of audiobooks, in her case, what does ACX require or Audible require in terms of contracts? Like, how are these contracts presented and so on? I'm not a lawyer. You are. You can review these things. So I'm learning, and that's, like, invaluable. And then I'm meeting people who are just great. They're like, you have attracted a group of people who are in some way, shape, or form like you, enthusiastic and facile and forward-looking and tech-friendly to a great degree. Big personalities. I just love the whole world of it. So again, I'm hoping I'm answering your question. I just,
You are.
I couldn't wait to get that out. So
I appreciate this so much because it's rare that I get a chance to really hear the feedback because, we're behind the scenes building things and testing. So 2 things I want to make sure I mention. One is a shout out to Alyssa D. Hecker Esquire. So Alyssa, I call her our in-house attorney
mhm.
because she is my go-to for anything book related, contracts, protecting your IP, not getting screwed by a publisher, whatever, wherever you are in that. And Alyssa has the claim to fame as being the very first person to sign up when I said I'm thinking about doing this hub thing, and I'm piloting it. She got to the Google form first. She was like, I'm in, and I'm so appreciative because we need that kind of expertise as the rest of us are content creators, not attorneys. And that's who she works with, though. She works with all these artists and content creators and entrepreneurs. And she's not in the business of helping authors publish books or do audiobooks, but she knows the people and she wants to be of service. So that's the other thing I think really is universal true of all the hub partners. We're all very service leadership oriented and want, even if it's not I'm being paid, I want you to get the right introduction to the right person who will help you get where you're trying to go. And I do that all the time. I know that that'll come back in some way, like not maybe directly as a transaction, but just being that kind of person in the world. I feel like I attract the right people for that. And then also people listening don't have to be a paid hub partner to participate because I host these free events every single month. 1 month for writers and authors and the other month for speakers. And yes, you might be both because a lot of times speakers want to be authors and authors want to be speakers. That Venn diagram is very much overlapping, and that's intentional. So these are 2 separately branded events, but I host really fun. And thank you for your kind words on this, David. Fun, engaging, in and out of breakout rooms, opportunities to connect and network. And the ones at the writer and author ones have our hub partners there, like David, and you can get into a breakout room with him to talk about audiobooks and marketing of books and all of that good stuff. So it's another way to get to know each other one-on-one. So all of that, including Alyssa's link and David's link, are at bizbookpubhub.com. Could you share, like, what is the other way besides going to bizbookpubhub.com and checking out your hub profile? What are the other ways people can find you and follow your work?
If you Google my name, David H. Lawrence 17th, I will inundate you with pages of links. My work on television and in films, my work training people at VO Heroes, at narrateyourownbook.com. Get in touch. Let me know that you watched this or listened to this. Thank you for letting me know that, because I do the same thing with my podcast. I always say watch or listen, and I kind of have to watch myself to not say that when I'm guesting on other podcasts, because I don't know if that's what they're doing. But I'm kind of hard not to bump into if you go looking for me online. So, but for the people watching this and listening to this, narrateyourownbook.com. We're finding our way with it, and we'd love to have you if this is something that you want to do. And just pop me an email if you have any questions about it. Anybody who's participating here, I'm sure you have questions about it, and I'd love to answer those for you. I'm pretty generous with my time.
I love it. And I'm going to be filling out your interest form. So I'm in the know for when you're open this next, because I feel like you just convinced me. I have at least 1 audiobook in front of me that I'll be recording, maybe more than 1. I can see it. So I'll put all these links, including links to your LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, narrateyourownbook.com, your BizBook PubHub Premier Hub Partner landing page at bizbookpubhub.com, which is also where you'll find all the show notes from previous episodes. They air every Tuesday and Thursday. Invitations to the free virtual networking events that I mentioned. You'll also get to find out about all these other experts that could be supporting you through writing, editing, publishing, and marketing your book. And 3 times a year, I organize a Kindle cross-promotion campaign that supports authors in getting the word out about their book. Even if it's an older book, if it's a newer book, whatever it is, we want to band together and be supporting each other. That's a big piece of what we're doing here, is building an awesome, engaged community of authors. So check all that out at bizbookpubhub.com. David, thank you so much for joining us for this conversation. Really, really appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Robbie.